In this video, we're going to review inequality notation versus interval notation. In the first example, it says x is greater than 5. Now, when we graph that on the number line, we have 5 on the number line, and we want all the numbers that are greater than 5. So when I graph this, I want to graph all the numbers to the right because those are all the numbers greater than 5. Now, the difference between whether or not I include 5 or I don't include 5 is if I use an open circle versus a closed circle over the 5. Because I am not including the 5, I want to leave this as an open circle. Now, when I look at what I just graphed, this is my left point of my interval, and that arrow indicates that I'm going to the right forever. So when I write this in interval notation, I'm going to use parentheses for not included, and I'm going to use bracket for included. And also when we write this in interval notation, what's easy about that is you write the left value on the left and the right value on the right. And it's going to kind of look like an ordered pair, even though it's not an ordered pair. Okay, so when I look at my left value, I'm looking at 5. When I look at how far I go to the right, for the right, I go on forever to positive infinity. Now, because I don't want to include that 5, it doesn't have the little equal sign under there, and I didn't fill it in with the dot, I'm going to use parentheses for the 5 to indicate that I'm not including, and we never use bracket for infinity. We always use parentheses because infinity is not a number that we can include as a value, but it's more of a concept that something goes on forever in a particular direction. Okay, for the next example, it's the same idea, but this time we're including the 5. So when I draw my circle above the 5, I'm going to draw it filled in, and I'm going to draw it to the right because this is saying x is greater than or equal to 5. So I want everything to the right of 5 plus include 5. So when I write this in interval notation, I'm looking at the furthest point left, which would be this point, and my furthest point right this way, which would be infinity. So on the left, I would put 5. On the right, I would put infinity. With infinity, I always use parentheses, but in this case, with the 5, because I want to actually include the 5 in that interval, I'm going to use bracket. So you can see it kind of looks like how we write an ordered pair, but just keep in mind interval notation represents an interval, not a point. So it's a whole bunch of numbers, not just one specific point on the graph. For this next example, if I look at 5 on my number line, it says x is less than 5. So this time, I don't want to include 5 because I don't have my equivalent sign under there. So I'm going to use an open circle. And I want to go to the left since it's everything less than 5. So here's my interval. This is my left now, and this is my right now. So when I write this down, my left is going to be minus infinity, and my right is going to be 5, but I'm not including either one. I never use bracket with infinity, and in this case, I'm not including the 5, so this is going to be parentheses. Okay, next example, x is less than or equal to 5 is what we just did, but we're including the 5. So that means I'm going to fill in my circle above 5 to indicate that I'm including 5 in my interval. And this reads x is less than or equal to 5, so I want everything to the left. Any of the numbers less than 5. Now when I look at that interval, on the left, I'm going to minus infinity. The right part of the interval is going to be 5. So when I write it down, it's going to look like this again. Only this time, on the 5, I'm going to use bracket, because I'm including 5 in this case. Okay, next example. X is between 0 and 5, not including 0 but including 5, would look like this. I want everything in between 0 and 5, but I want to include 5, so that's going to be a closed circle. And I don't want to include 0, so that's going to be an open circle. So when I write my interval, I'm going to have 0 and 5 right next to my left. 0 is on my left, 5 is on my right. 0 is not being included, but 5 is being included. Okay, last example in our chart here. It's the same as the previous example, only we're switching the numbers that are included. I want to include 0 in this one, not include 5, and I want everything in between. So here's my interval. So on my left I have 0. On my right I have 5, but this time 5 is not included and 0 is. Now, I'm going to add actually one more example here. We're going to add in, I'm just going to switch this and write, like say, x is less than or equal to 0, or x is greater than 5. If I write this on the number line, I have less than or equal to 0. So I'm including 0. This time I'm saying less than 0. So I'm going to the left. And then I also have x is greater than 5. So I'm not including 5, so that's going to be an open circle. Greater than 5 means I'm going to the right. So here's my intervals. Notice that this is a little bit than the previous examples that we did because I have 2 intervals here. As opposed to all the other examples we did, I had 1 interval. This is broken into 2 pieces. So when you have something like this and you want to write it in interval notation, you just write it as 2 separate pieces. So I would write this piece here, I would write is minus infinity up to 0, including 0. And then the second piece, I would write 5 to infinity. And the only thing different, because I want to say that it would be on the first interval or the second interval, we're going to put union here. It's like a bold-face U. And that is the mathematical symbol for a union. So if you have 2 intervals on the same graph, you write them separately and you just stick a union symbol in the middle.